Well, hello there. It's another day. I'm Jim Harrington.
And I am Bill Knight. Happy Monday. Hope you had a good weekend.
It was a terrific weekend. But, we were talking before the show started, and you said, and it's true, the people who are trying to see us in turmoil seem to, they'll let loose on the weekend. They go on all the talk shows, and they spew all this negativity, and we had our share of it this weekend.
Well, yeah, they're cranking up the heat. Every story, whether it's right or wrong, mostly wrong, or if it's right to a degree, it's twisted. It's got a little bit of truth, an ounce of truth, and 10 ounces of crap.
Yeah, yeah.
That's just the way it is. But I've noticed something about the left. The story, they lost, and they lost in record numbers. But they will do whatever they can, say whatever they can. They don't care how far they push it, because they're at a point now to where what they're doing is defying the laws of logic and for the most part, downright lies and illegal. But they're going like, what are you going to do about it? So in other words,
Challenging.
they're taunting us.
Yeah.
Well, what are you going to do? Because if we sit there and rebel back, aha, there, see, we told you. So no matter what we do, we're in a pickle.
Yeah. It's not just in this country, too. That's why I think it's a globalist type of thing. I have a story coming up in a little while where Tucker Carlson talks to a candidate who was running for the presidency in Romania. His name is Georgescu. And the guy was like Romania's Trump. And so he didn't have the backing or the name, obviously, that Trump has, or I guess the money either. So the globalists in Europe were able to crush him, literally. They literally arrested the guy and forced him out of the election. He had 40% of the people behind him. They said he was a shoo-in to be the next president of Romania. But because he was a traditionalist, because he believed in country first, because he wasn't part of that global cabal, he was silenced effectively. Anyway, I got something coming up with that in a little while with a clip from that interview with Tucker Carlson. But I think it's all connected. I do think that we are seeing we're seeing the globalists, the people at the World Economic Forum and stuff. They're exercising their power. They're flexing their muscles. For example, one of the big guys at WEF was Soros and his people. And what does he do? He backs all these demonstrations in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me.
I'm sitting here thinking about America and and our fight right now, and what's going on. And we've already given up our manufacturing. We could retool real quick and be back in the game. And if we wanted to, be isolationist, and we could live real happily all by ourselves, be choked off, which the EU and China are trying to do right now. And, they're putting together a deal where it's fair footing, free and fair trade, on even footing with them, something that China would never do with us. But we have become to where we don't do anything anymore here. All we've got are retail and service jobs, and those will go away. But yet, and China's going, we're going to cut off your rare earth stuff and all these critical minerals. We have them here.
Oh, I know.
That says we can't use them. We're the breadbasket of the world. But, we have regulations that prevent us from using it. So what I'm getting to is, let's say we just fall into that trap to where we're non-productive. We don't do this. We're a service industry, and we don't produce anymore, and we're weakened. We can't defend ourselves. And all of a sudden, America becomes an extension of the EU or China. And then, guess what happens? They come in and go, well, you know what? We can harvest their crops now and plant away. Oh, look at all the minerals we gained that are all right here in our backyard, but we're going to give it away.
Yeah.
We're giving our soul away for what?
Imagine, if you will, it's World War II. For those of you who aren't paying attention, think about this. Do you think, if I said to you, the United States, England, and all of the other allies, right, were relying on Germany for munitions or for parts, for some critical part of their war effort, right? You'd say, that's ridiculous. But yet, right now, we rely on our biggest adversary in the world, China, for a lot of our key elements. You heard Bill say the rare earth. They're thinking about cutting off the rare earth elements into this country.
We have more.
Understand something. We are probably going to have some pain. It's probably going to be a little uncomfortable for a while as we adjust as a country. But my parents, they had a lot of it during World War II. They rationed stuff. You couldn't get certain things during World War II because there was a war effort. Well, let me tell you something. We may not be, shooting weapons, but we are in the midst of an economic war right now.
It's been going on for years. China has, not just China, but
Right.
almost the whole world. It's kind of like we won the war in World War II.
Right.
But I don't think just because there was a peace deal, it just stopped the fighting. The bloodshed. But the fight continued, and we have been losing steadily to where we're weak.
Yeah.
You might think, oh, we're strong, but our weapons, they're made elsewhere, not made here.
No, we've got to suck it up, and we've got to be a strong nation. We've got to sacrifice a bit. If you're the type of person that buys a new car every 2 years, well, then maybe you may have to wait and do it every 4 years. You may have to save a little longer to get a new car.
Oh, bad.
But the thing is, you have to.
If we,
Go ahead, Bill.
well, I was going to say, we have to manufacture here. I mean, you can't get parts for cars here or anything like that. But if we get it back on our own solid footing, and they can trade their stuff here freely, if we can trade our stuff there freely, it would be a good world, and we would be strong in case of times like this. But slowly, they've shortened our leash.
Yeah.
It's like a dog on a leash. Well, I can run all the way out to the street, but you cut off one link a day.
Yeah.
One link a day. And then one day the dog wakes up and goes, man, I'm stuck to this pole. I can't move.
Yeah. And that's true. We are in a situation right now where it's not a fair playing field.
No.
You have got China saying that we're not going to let you sell X amount of stuff into our country, but we expect you to allow us to sell that same stuff in your country without any kind of problem at all.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't make any sense. And we've done this, by the way, Bill, we've done this not during just a Democratic administration. We've done it during Republican administrations, too. President Trump said this in the Oval Office. A lot of people who sat in this desk, meaning the Resolute desk, the presidential desk in the Oval Office, he said, they failed our country. And it's true. So, go ahead, Bill.
This has been going on for, so long. We've been divided. We have been divided as a people, where, well, you got the whites, you got the blacks over here, you got this and that, so we've been divided racially into little splintered groups. And then, well, let's attack the church. And we've been divided that way. And then we're divided by gender and identity. Well, I'm gay. Well, I'm transgender. Well, woman power, man power, this power, that power. We're all divided in our little, individual groups. Let me ask you something. Whether you're black, you're white, you're gay, well, white, I would say, how many white people do you see in Russia? Well, they're white. But in China, not that many. How many black people do you see there? Do they even like you there? Probably not that many. And if you're gay or transgender, we're the only country that really accepts it. We're at war with our division, but you're not welcome in so many other countries. But
yeah.
It has been a divisive thing for us, And let's say that we do fall, and they do come in, and they strip they rape our land to fatten their coffers. Do you think they're going to love you and embrace you and all your happy joy beauty? I don't think so.
Everything that
I think
everything that we are as a people will be gone.
it's
Everything.
gone.
If
And
we
everything
don't
you think you
if we
got, it's gone.
if we don't stand up right now, if
Mhm.
and say, okay, we're going to sacrifice, we're going to suck it up a bit, we're going to maybe not have the extra something that we normally have. That's okay, because we know there have to be sacrifices for us to be a stronger nation down the road. And by the way, Bill, there's never going to be a better time down the road. Now's that better time. Now's the time that we've got to make the sacrifice so that we don't have an emergency situation.
You know, there's an old liberal song back in the days of glory, I guess. You know, united we stand, divided we fall. And we are a divided nation. And it's the wheels, they've already come off the wagon. The wagon is careening down the hill with no driver, no wheels, and we're in it.
Yeah.
What the hell are we going to do?
Well,
Oh, yeah, I guess we can jump out, but we got to figure this one out.
I think President Trump has, and I think he's said it many times. There'll be a period of transition. It may be a little uncomfortable for a while, but in the long run, we're going to be all the better for it. We're going to be using our own rare earths. You know, somebody said at the end of last week during an interview, well, they could cut off our rare earth. And someone said, don't say that. You're giving them an idea. And I'll be darned if that weekend China comes out and says we may cut off the rare earth minerals. Well, you know, they may have gotten that idea, by the way, from that interview. Who knows? We have got to be more self-sufficient again. Cars, we should make all of our cars here. We should make all of our computer chips, all of our transistors, whatever it is that we need electronically, should be made in this country. It's totally self-sufficient.
We have land that we can farm, probably the best, most productive farmland in the world. We have that, so we can do that. We've had manufacturing. We have, Pittsburgh Steel. We had aluminum out of West Virginia. We have coal all over the place. Oh, by the way, we do have rare earth minerals, and we have a lot of other resources too. Oil, gas, every element that you can think of, we have. Oh, we have a lot of uranium up in, where is it, around Idaho and stuff like that. I mean, a plentiful amount. We have got every stinking thing you need all here in one place.
And by the way, we should, in my opinion, we should politely seize all of the Chinese farmland, any farmland, especially the farmland that they've so conveniently purchased right next to our military bases. We should seize it, and maybe we should reimburse them, give them the fair. You know, we're an honest country, so we'll give them a check. You know, I'm sorry, you can no longer own property in our country. Here's what we think the fair market value is for that land. Have a nice day. You're done. We should do it not down the road. We should do it ASAP.
Here's the problem with that, Jim. Judges. We have judges. Judges, I'll say have a liberal slant, but I say it's a little deeper and darker than that. And they're all looking at their bank accounts going, well, I got to protect that, and I got this money coming in. Well, you know what happens, even to them that are on that page. You really think that the real owners of the world are going to let you keep that money? And we're getting ready to, they're already saying, well, I saw the statistics of what it costs to make a penny, make a nickel, make a dime, make a quarter, make a dollar. It's way more expensive than the value of the money.
I think they said it's like 3 cents to make a penny. It's like it didn't make a lot of sense.
You figure 3 to 1 on everything. So Well, the solution to that is go to digital currency. Well, and that's true, because if you have paper assets in a bank, it's just a ledger. They can take it away. Well, wait a minute. You can have paper assets in gold in your safe. That's about the only thing. Precious metals. Anymore, you buy gold, we'll store it for you in a warehouse. Do you really know it's there? Do you really have it? Oh, you got a piece of paper. If you sit there and we go digital, and everything is, well, it's on a ledger. You don't have anything, digital currency.
Oh, I know.
Yes.
You're absolutely correct. I mean, you have money in a bank,
Got you.
and they send you a statement, and the statement says you have X amount of money in the bank, but you don't see the cash. It's literally, once you give them the money, once they have that money that's yours, it becomes, like Bill says, digital. And they can, by the way, they can erase it. The government can erase it with the stroke of a pen or the press of a key.
Credits, they'll call it. They call it credits. Oh, you've got so many credits.
Well,
I want, if we're a money-based society, all right, I want something tangible. I don't want your word. Because,
well, they took gold away from us. They made it to a point where it was actually illegal to own gold in our country at one point. I think it was during World War II. They took away our option, our right to own gold. You had to, if you had gold stockpiled somewhere, you had to get rid of it. It wasn't until maybe the 80s when they started to give you an option to buy Cougaran. That was from another country, and they weren't issuing it here.
Right.
But anyway, I wanted to play this. Stephen Miller was on with Maria Bartiromo. Stephen Miller is a deputy advisor to the president. He was talking about the tariff situation and why he thinks it's such a good thing.
Joining me now with more in the Sunday Morning Futures exclusive is the White House Deputy Chief of Staff on Policy, Stephen Miller. Stephen, it's great to see you this weekend. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
And I called it breaking news because Border Patrol released this on Friday night. But I guess it's not such breaking news from your standpoint because you were targeting specific items from day one. Walk us through these exemptions, Stephen, and what they mean.
Yes, this is just another great example of how President Trump had a detailed plan from the beginning that's being executed exactly as directed. And unfortunately, some in the media are deliberately misportraying that plan. The original 20% IEPA, that's the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, for China poisoning our citizens with fentanyl, that 20% rate is and continues to be applied to all imports from China. When the president issued his reciprocal tariffs, our government at the time specifically said that chips and semiconductors, which are critical components of our national security, were going to be dealt with through a separate commerce authority known as a 232. That was always the plan because those components are so essential to our national security. We need to have a separate process for dealing with how to reshore those essential industries. When the tariff rate went up to the full rate of 125 on top of the 20, it was necessary to publish a more detailed list from Customs and Border Protection explaining the rates and how they're applied. There are no exemptions. Everyone pays at least the 20%, and these particular components are being put through a separate process controlled by the Department of Commerce, which is the 232. So this is a sophisticated, elegant, detailed plan to deal with Chinese economic aggression against the United States.
Yeah, and look, I still expect semiconductor companies, Apple, these companies that are exposed to this to trade higher in the stock market on Monday. I still, even though this was the plan from day one, but obviously markets are reacting to all of this. Stephen, what can you tell us about this 90-day period where President Trump is negotiating with our allies and on trade? Should we expect deals with countries like Japan and South Korea and India soon?
Well, as President Trump has said, he's dispatched his team, Scott Bessent, Howard Lutnick, Jameson Greer, to have conversations with these countries and to explain to them their egregious trade abuses, how they've manipulated their currencies, how they have illegally subsidized their industries, and how they balloon the trade deficit. And that's going to lead to a bilateral process with each and every one of these countries. And I'm not going to prejudge that result. But the 90-day pause before the tariff rates snap back gives us an opportunity to have have that conversation with each of these countries and to deal with these long-running, severe, and systemic abuses, while at the same time, and very importantly, focusing all of our attention and the attention of the entire international community on how China has distorted the entire global trading system through decades of intellectual property theft, trademark theft, copyright theft, industrial espionage, currency manipulation, illegal subsidization of critical industries, targeted dumping to destroy core manufacturing capacity in other countries so that they cannot protect and defend themselves in a time of national emergency. These are state-led policies from China that require redress, and the only scandal is that it took so long for us to finally have a president in Donald Trump who will protect and defend America from these abuses, while every other president, Democrat and Republican, allowed China to plunder us to a degree that was so savage and so total, it honestly eclipses the imagination.
It really does. And why? I mean, I cover this every single day and put a spotlight on the bad behavior, and that's being nice about it, of communist China. Why is it that we allow them to roll over America and undermine this great country every day?
And they've done it for decades. It is shameful that core elements of our industrial base, our medical base, our manufacturing base, our pharmaceutical base, our defense base, our electronic components, our chips, our critical minerals, that all of the things that power a country, we've allowed those supply chains to be centered in China, to give China the ability to exert that kind of control over the rest of the world through these illicit means. That's unthinkable. President Trump, history will record that the actions President Trump has taken in recent days were the beginning of saving the West from complete economic domination by another power.
But look, Stephen, during COVID, we learned that they may not send these critical elements to America. During COVID, you remember when the propaganda, the state media sent out a tweet saying, well, maybe we won't send the critical components, underlying components of prescription drugs to America right now. Let them get sick. Then suddenly that tweet was gone and you won't be able to find it anymore. But why wouldn't China make the decision not to send any of that, the critical rare earth minerals, right now?
Well, the United States also has considerable and profound economic leverage over China. First and most importantly, we underwrite the entire country. All of its development, all of its industrialization, all of its economic subsidies, all of those. When you see those photos of what cities in China looked like 10, 20 years ago, barren, desolate, and now these glittering skyscrapers, who do you think's paid for all of that? We did. We paid for literally all of it. So China, and we have other leverage in terms of, I don't want to get into it here, but there are many things that are essential to China's security that they need from the United States. Now, so China would be very wise to pursue the path of de-escalation.
Do you believe China was selling treasuries this week?
I don't want to comment on that. All I want to say is that America is in the best position under President Trump to dominate the economic future because of how we are unleashing deregulation, exploring and opening American energy, including trillions of dollars in clean coal, and how we are on the verge of passing a tax bill that will provide economic certainty and make America into the most desirable place on planet Earth to shore jobs, invest, expand, hire, and grow. This is an economic strategy. Deal with China's abuses, deregulate, explode American energy production, create the most favorable tax system for American development on the face of the earth. That is the recipe for radical American success, Maria.
Stephen, it sounds fantastic, and thank you for your leadership on the border as well and stopping all of that fentanyl from coming in.
That's White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller with Maria Bartiromo yesterday. And, you know, the thing about it is there's never going to be a better time to do it than right now. It never would have happened if Kamala had been made the president. Never would have happened in any other presidency because we saw George Bush, nothing. Both George Bushes, nothing. We saw the Clintons. They did nothing but give our stuff to China. And there was no healing that we could see down the road other than with Donald Trump. Trump comes into office, and he even said no one was going to pull the trigger but me. And he did. And now China's a little upset and they're going to feel the pain too, trust me. But in the long run, we are going to be so much stronger. Bill, you said it yourself just a few minutes ago. We have all of these incredible resources right here in our country. We don't need to go to China to get it, you know. And by the way, think of it this way. All of the people that you know who are unemployed or underemployed, they're going to probably end up with better jobs, better paying jobs. The cost of the way that we live will improve significantly by having our economy become stronger all the way around. It's got to be done, Bill. It's got to be done. Anyway,
you know, if I told you we as America could have everything we wanted, you'd probably go, no, you can't. No. Yeah, you can. All we have to do is stand united. Democrats, you're Democrats. Republicans, we're Republicans. But we are one together. And we've got to sit there and be strong together. And that's no matter your skin color, no matter your sexual identity, no matter your party. Let's stand together and build a strong nation again and live up to our charter of what our Constitution meant us to be.
When I was a young man, Bill, there were two parties in our country, two major parties, Democrat and Republican, and they had their differences, but they could talk.
The day, we got along.
They could talk. They could have lunch together in the White House or in the Senate dining room. They could be friendly outside of politics. You can't have that happen anymore because, in my opinion, the Democratic Party has moved so far to the left that they have they don't look at all like the Democratic Party that I remember as a younger man.
Well,
it's more of a socialist party right now than anything.
Socialist and communist have taken over the party. Now, he says he's independent, but Bernie Sanders, he's a communist. He's a socialist.
Yep.
Now, on paper, he doesn't make a lot of money, but he's got, what is it? Is it 3 or 5 mansions he's got?
Yeah.
And they're all $1 million mansions. He is worth several $1 million.
Yeah.
And yet he's out doing, rallies. We've got to fight the oligarchs. Hey, Bernie, you are one.
I was reading.
Socialist one.
You probably saw it. Kareem Jeffries, the Democratic leader in the House, he was $40,000 in debt before he got into politics, and now they say he's worth several $1 million. How does that happen? I mean, how does someone who's $40,000 in debt go into politics and then become wealthy? That's not supposed to happen, folks.
No, it doesn't happen in a fair world like we're talking about. We want a fair world with, trade and everything. But, you talked about Hakeem. He called Defense Secretary
Pete Hegseth, yeah.
Yeah, an effing idiot. And he vowed he's going to get him fired.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
So in other words, he's calling his shot. I'm going to get you fired if I have to make up something, lie, beg, steal. I don't like you, so I'm going to kick you off the playing field.
Yeah, Hegseth was on Maria's program over the weekend, and he said this.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, just back from the Panama Canal, joins me right now in this Sunday Morning Futures exclusive. Secretary, great to see you this morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Of course.
Tell us about the trip and what are the most important takeaways that we need to understand about the Panama Canal.
Well, President Trump said in his State of the Union address, China has too much influence over the Panama Canal and America's going to take it back. And that's exactly what I was charged to do, what we're continuing to do. China's influence cannot control our own backyard, especially a critical waterway, key terrain like the Panama Canal. You mentioned 40% of ships are U.S. ships. 75% are going to or from a port. So we were able to secure 2 historic agreements. One with the Panama Canal Authority, that our ships, our military vessels and auxiliary vessels will travel first and free through that Panama Canal. And then we also signed a memorandum of understanding with the defense secretary over there and the president that established a robust and growing U.S. presence, right? You need to secure that key terrain. So Fort Sherman will reopen jointly with the Panamanians, a jungle school, and we're going to have a larger U.S. presence at the invitation of Panama, working with them to keep the communist Chinese out. If we can't use that waterway in a key contingency, then China has an advantage. Other presidents have allowed us, we've been sort of asleep at the wheel. President Trump has said we need to be serious about our own backyard. That includes a place like the Panama Canal. And I want to thank President Molino, a pro-Trump, pro-America president of Panama, who's sticking his neck out against communists whose influence was real there, Maria. We could see it. You could feel it. The communist Chinese want to control politicians. They're building infrastructure projects. They want to surveil. They want to take that canal. President Trump says, not on our watch, and we're fighting back.
That's unbelievable. And when I spoke with President Trump in an interview last month, he said that all the signage around the canal was all in Chinese. When you're going into it, it's all Chinese signs. When you're coming out of it, there's all Chinese signs. That was sort of one piece of color that indicates how dominant they've been.
Correct. They're building a tunnel underneath the canal they're paying for. What could that be used for? Surveillance of submarines, of ships, bridges over the top, cranes within. We flew by their cranes in that port, antennas all over them. What are those used to do? We didn't see, by now, they're removing a lot of that signage, but removing signage is not enough. You've got to remove the insidious influence. And in getting these agreements signed, it was a big effort across our DOD with their leaders, but they know that by coming closer to the United States and allowing additional joint U.S. presence, that's pushing out nefarious, malicious Chinese influence. The Chinese didn't like what happened in Panama this week. Not at all, because this is a return of U.S. leadership, peace through strength, and the course was charted by President Trump.
Do you expect this deal between BlackRock and C.K. Hutchison to go forward? China doesn't want it to go forward. I mean, President Trump said he'd rather deal with BlackRock, an American company, than a Hong Kong-based company.
Well, I agree with the president. And in sitting down with President Molino of Panama, they had just received the audit, which showed that Hutchinson, the Chinese firm, had hundreds of millions of dollars that they owed. They were going to reveal they had not paid. So this was not a good deal for Panama, whereas the BlackRock deal is more straightforward and an American company. So the Panama would like it. President Trump has said we need it. Combine that with kicking out the Belt and Road Initiative, which Secretary of State Rubio got on his first trip in February, and we're getting to the point where, Panama and the U.S. are shoulder to shoulder saying, get out, China, and that serves us.
Unbelievable. We're going to keep talking about this as it relates to trade coming up. Let me get your take on Iran, Secretary, because, of course, we've had direct talks yesterday. They began in the past. It's been indirect talks with a mediator. But there's Steve Witkoff meeting with the foreign minister of Iran. What can you tell us?
Well, I can tell you that President Trump is dead serious on this issue. He's dead serious that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. He's said that for 20 years. He's been consistent. That is clear. He's dead serious that he wants it done at the negotiating table. He wants it done peacefully. Yeah. And that's why he's going straight to these talks. He set that deadline. These were productive talks yesterday. I don't want to get ahead of our skis. Steve Witkoff does a fantastic job, but it was a good step, and they're going to go at it again on Saturday. But he's also dead serious that if we can't figure this out at the negotiating table, then there are other options, to include my department, to ensure that Iran never has a nuclear bomb. We hope we never get there. We really do, Maria. But what we're doing with the Houthis and what we're doing in the region, we've shown a capability to go far, to go deep, and to go big. And again, we don't want to do that. But if we have to, we will, to prevent the nuclear bomb in Iran's hands.
I was reading about some of the armament used against the Houthis and these proxies of Iran. And it suggested to me that we were sending a message to ensure that the Houthis and the Iranians understood the kind of capability we have in our military should we need to use them.
Well, we know, Maria, that Iran's taking a look at what's happening to the Houthis and realizing they don't want any part of it. And that's because we're dismantling the Houthis' capabilities. We're even hearing rumblings of them second-guessing what they're doing. Ultimately, we just want to open up our shipping lanes. That's it. It's a very narrow interest with the Houthis, but it sends a clear signal to Iran as well. You're not going to mess with the United States. Iran, come to the table, negotiate. full dismantlement of your nuclear capabilities, and then that doesn't have to be your future.
And the president last week with Benjamin Netanyahu unveiled plans for $1 trillion defense budget next year, massive increase that the president said will provide the country with unmatched military strength. What can you tell us about that, Secretary? Because we've been seeing lots of worries about the Navy, the number of ships in the United States versus what China has. Are you reversing that at this point?
We are rebuilding America's military, which President Trump has charged me with doing. We're going to find efficiencies. You know, we just cut $5.1 billion on Friday of useless contracts at DOD. So we're cutting where we need to find where we can, and there's tens of billions more to find.
Yeah.
But we're adding on top of it a generational investment, Maria. President Trump investing in the F-47, sixth-generation fighter, more ships, shipbuilding, long-range missiles, all the types of future of armaments we're going to need for future conflicts. This is a generational rebuilding because the communist Chinese, are ascendant. They're investing in their military. We're going to achieve peace through strength, and President Trump's going to fund it.
And at the same time, the Democrats are mocking the efforts and mocking you. Hakeem Jeffries released a statement on Thread saying the so-called defense secretary has ordered 400 books removed from the Naval Academy. He came up with a new description of DEI. I'm sure you saw that. Dumb, effing individuals? DEI?
Oh, boy. That's how far they've fallen. It's astonishing, not surprising. Of course, they don't like the fact that we're ripping DEI out of the military and making it colorblind and merit-based. If their whole strategy is, I don't even know how long the video was, didn't see it, minute-long videos on TikTok to call us names while we secure the southern border, kick out Chinese influence, revive the warrior culture inside our military. That's why they lost in a historic fashion to President Trump last time, and their future looks bleak as well. So we're looking at all the ways in which our military academies educate and giving guidance to get rid of DEI, and I think the American people appreciate that.
Secretary, it's great to have you this morning. Thanks very much for all of your efforts.
Thank you, Maria.
The left underestimates all of Trump's people. I mean, Pete Hegseth, they look at him, he's the weekend host of Fox and Friends. Pete Hegseth is a Princeton graduate. I think he went to Harvard for a postgraduate. The guy's got an incredible educational resume. He was a military patriot. He fought in combat. He has an incredible resume. Yet Hakeem Jeffries, who has nothing like that, comes out and calls him a dumb effing whatever individual. And that was EF. That's what he was able to use the DEI initials. But it's mind-boggling. And what he was talking about during his conversation with Maria was all of these wonderful things that are happening in such a short period of time. You remember, he hasn't been president for 4 months yet. This guy's only been in the presidency since January. And yet all of this stuff is happening. He's shaking up the world and doing it for our benefit, as opposed to in the past, we had this. I got another cut I got to play in a couple of seconds because it's another mind-boggling piece. It was a great weekend for audio this weekend. But Maria does a great job on her show. If you don't watch Sunday Morning Futures, you might want to start because she has some incredible guests. But the next cut I want to play, Bill, is Tucker Carlson. We talked about this earlier in the show. He has a terrific interview with the former presidential candidate in Romania, Georgescu. And he's like the Romanian Trump. He's a nationalist. He believes in Romania first. And the globalists in Europe, they couldn't stand having him in that position. So they literally squeezed him out. They pushed him out of the candidacy, out of the race. But Tucker sat down. It's a long interview, but I only have about 4 minutes of it. But you gotta hear this guy. The other thing is amazing. Romanian is his first language. English is maybe his second or third language. Yet he's pretty articulate. He's pretty comfortable talking and answering questions in English. This is Tucker Carlson with Romanian presidential candidate, former presidential candidate, Georgescu.
What role did U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken play in Romanian politics?
So everybody knows that was a foreign intervention, and particularly from Secretary of State Blinken, that he intervened in the elections and simply dictate what the system have to do. And it's absolutely, everybody knows about this situation, including, of course, President Macron and Maia Sandu from Moldova as well. They intervened. But the most important was Secretary of State Blinken.
What did he do and say that affected your election and Romanian politics?
Well, simply was an intervention. They don't, very clear, they don't need free Romania. To be mentioned that the largest military base of NATO is in Romania. Probably you know about that.
Yes.
And of course, they want to launch the World War III from Romania. And with this situation, of course, they can involve all Europe and also United States. So they have interest. They have interest in war.
What do you mean they want to launch World War III from Romania?
Because let me tell you how is the situation. It's a key gateway which can cancel, can protect the humanity to go in the war, or can go to the war. Why? Because it's the largest boundary which Romania has with Ukraine. We discuss about 380 miles only for Romania. In compare, Poland has almost 330 miles and Hungary around 80 miles. Geographically, it's very important as well. So the largest boundary, again, for Ukraine is Romania. And in this situation, of course, Romania is the asset for European Union, for Macron, in order to launch the war. Strategically, it's important. So number one is the most important strategical point, Romania. Number two is a security framework for the Black Sea. Number three is a regional influence for Moldova is for the Black Sea, and also it's a leverage for economic and for energy situation. And they know about that. They know very well about that. They want to turn NATO on an offensive force. And we know very well that NATO is defensive organization. And this was my point all the time. First of all, I said it's not our war. We have nothing to do. The national interest is diplomatic negotiation, and we can be a peace mediator, Romania. And they don't like that. Because they want to, of course, they want to cover many things, which even today we don't know exactly what. But they're pushing for war. And of course, my position was exactly against them, was totally contrary to them.
So here's a guy who wants to take Romania and make it a successful independent nation that is pro-Romanian. And he's up against a group of nations in Europe, including France, that want to use Romania as a launching point, and he says it for World War III. He says that a lot of people don't realize it, but the largest NATO base in Europe is in Romania. He says that that Romania has the largest border with Ukraine, 380 miles. And he says he wants this faction, including Tony Blinken. As a matter of fact, he didn't say including Tony Blinken. He implied that it was led by Tony Blinken, former Secretary of State in the United States under Biden, that they wanted to turn NATO into an offensive force. NATO was designed to be defensive, defending against any kind of aggression from Russia. But now these people want to turn around and make it so that NATO can be the first strike. You know?
What would be the purpose? And because, all the telltale signs are there that there are people that want us to go to World War III.
I think you just nailed
the
it.
outcome?
I think you just nailed it, Bill. I think you just nailed it. When you said there are people that want us to go into World War III, I think that's the purpose. There's a faction in our world that would prefer that we're not at peace anywhere in the world.
But who gains, who loses? You lose, I lose. Anybody listening, well, most anybody listening loses. Who gains?
Well, that's a great question, and I'll tell you. I mean, on the surface, it's really easy to see who's losing right now. Right now, the little guy, the young men in Ukraine who are being sent off by the trainload and by the bus load to the front lines to be slaughtered. They are losing. It's not the fat cats in Paris or in London or in Berlin or any of the other big Belgium. They're not the ones who are losing. It's the little guy in the Ukraine who's been called up for the draft, and all of a sudden he's put into a uniform, and people are trying to shoot his head off. Those are the people that are losing. And you have to ask yourself, why? Why do they want this turmoil? Because I truly believe, Bill, that if we have a world of peace, if we have a time when, as a world, we can stop and see what's really going on, the bad guys will be uncovered, and they don't want that. It's easier to keep the world in conflict. They can make more money with their weapons that they sell. They can keep the world off balance. And as long as we're off balance, they won't be uncovered. It isn't a James Bond movie.
Nope.
This is for real. There are real bad guys out there. It's funny. I'm watching this show on TV called Mobland.
Yeah, it's a good show.
It is a good show. Pierce Brosnan and Tom Hardy, a great English actor. Helen Mirren. It's a really good show. It's produced by Guy Ritchie, who's done a lot of really good action movies. The thing is, you look at this and say, "Oh, this is ridiculous." But there are mobs who are so powerful in some of these countries that they have so much influence that they're almost untouchable. They can do the things that you think that no common man or even common criminal can do. But they have so much influence, and their power is so deep that they can do things that are hard to believe, and that's what this show is all about. And that's what we're talking about with this deep state. They are doing things right now in this country. They're still trying to bring Trump down. They've been knocked off their balance. Excuse me. They've been knocked off their footing with the past election, but they're not down for the count by any stretch of the imagination. They are confident that somehow they're going to get back on top again and be able to bring Trump down. Their goal isn't to make us a better country. It's to make us a Trump-free country. Anyway,
Trump is just the name and the label because, let's face it, life is like a pendulum. It swings left, it swings right. There's a balance. For everything good, there's something equal that's evil, but as things sway back and forth, and we're in a downward sway right now, or a sway way to the left and to the dark side. But I think that, as this pendulum has swung back and forth in time, you wish you could just stop it right in the middle.
Well, I think that's what Trump's trying to do. I think Trump is, maybe there's a pendulum back and forth. One party wins, another party wins, a different party wins. Maybe what Trump is trying to do is grab that pendulum and stop that, because that back and forth is doing our country no good.
I think, though, that there are forces that have tried to change the natural course of things and kind of favor that pendulum going one way versus the other and staying balanced back and forth, and settling, because throughout history, there have been times of peace, times of war, but we always come back to our senses. But right now, I'm just going, are we headed? Do we have to fall on our face, before we get up, shake it off, and get it right?
I think we were headed that way. I don't think we're headed that way now. I don't think that it's going to be an easy course correction. I think that anything worth doing right, it's going to usually it means an effort. Usually it means sacrifice.
We got to work for it.
We have to work for it. It's hard to believe, and that's the hard part. We become a little comfortable as a society. Everything kind of fell into place easily. We had our video games and nice cars, and we spent most of our weekends thinking about our favorite football team. Even yesterday, I spent most of my day watching it's not USFL anymore, it's UFL football, which was fun to watch. But in all honesty, we're going to have to start thinking about our world and what kind of world we're going to leave our children and grandchildren.
You just reminded me of something we were talking about before the show, and something we probably should talk about. You were talking about crooks and these young kids, like the kid that set fire, he's a 38-year-old man.
Yeah.
That set fire to Shapiro's, the
governor's residence, yeah.
The governor's residence. They had to be evacuated at 2 a.m. in the morning. And, they have... they're stacking the charges of terrorism, all kinds of things. Why are there so many counts? Well, that's a legal thing, to where that his defense is going to argue out so many. So you want to give them bones that they can argue out, so you can stick them with the big stuff. But either way, you're wondering, how is it that all these young guys are all of a sudden doing stuff like this? Didn't you ask the question?
There's a belief, Bill, that it's not by accident, that there is something. We're seeing something. For example, Thomas Matthew Crooks, the guy who tried to kill President Trump in Butler last July 13th. He's 20 years old. And I was thinking last night, I mentioned this to you before the show started, there had to be a lot of preparation involved with him getting ready to make that attempt. They talk about him going to a gun range months in advance in Clairton, PA, to become more expert at the use of the rifle that he used. He had some thought. He had bank accounts set up in 3 countries, Germany and New Zealand and in Belgium. And you say, why did he need 3 offshore bank accounts? He had, for a 20-year-old kid, he had a van and he had a car. He had all this weaponry. He had to scout out where he was going to go. He didn't just go there and think, I think I'll go up in that roof. So all right. I'm just thinking about, and by the way, we talked about this on Saturday. There was another guy in Butler who they arrested in Butler, PA. Boy, is that a coincidence. But my question was, Bill, we said this morning, was how much lead time do they have as far as knowing that there was going to be a rally in Butler? Usually they'll say, we're going to have a rally in 2 weeks in Butler, Pennsylvania. We've decided on Butler, PA. all of a
Well,
sudden he was seemed to be ready for it, like he knew what was going to happen there.
yeah, well, there are two things I want to address. We'll address that first. I think just like when Trump was in the office the first time, he didn't know the lay of the land. So he had a lot of bad advice, all right?
Yeah.
And they set him up. I still think there are bad elements, and it's hard to sweep out everything. And he might be getting some stray advice, and that's a little bit alarming. But and that could be where you sit there and they're steering these people in the direction of they have little cells, seed cells,
Yeah.
to where they down the road say, hey, Donald, why don't you think about Butler? It's a big conservative area there. You would do well there. He goes there, does well once. Well, we should go back and reaffirm that. That was a record crowd the last time.
Yeah.
And that intel information might be somebody saying, hey, we did well the last time. Let's see what happens this time. Yeah, let's see what
Yeah,
happens.
he did have almost 60,000 people the first time in his first his 2020 election. But I don't know. It just seemed like so much of a coincidence. And why would there be two guys who wanted to kill the president in the same town?
In that area.
Yeah.
Well, I had another theory here, too, that kind of overlaps. So I'll just throw it out there. You can poo-poo it if you want to. But how are they recruiting these people? And then I started thinking about it. If somebody wanted to get recruiter cells, train people, get them in the know and go of things, all right? And maybe something China controls, and that would be gaming. We have all these gaming.
That's
and
a
here
good
you
idea.
are in front of a computer, I'm learning how to be a bad guy.
That's true.
And all of a sudden, fantasy becomes reality.
It's interesting you should say that. I'm an older guy, and I do play on occasion during my idle time, like Call of Duty or something like that. And over the years, it's become much more graphic, much more realistic. When you shoot somebody, there's more blood and more gore. And I always think to myself, I know it's a game. I'm an older guy. I know it's a game. I've been around. I think of it as like a sophisticated game of checkers. But if you're 15 years old, 16 years old, you have, as Rush used to say, a young mind of mush.
Mm-hmm.
What does that do to a young mind? Does it appear to make them think that that killing somebody is easy? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it does. And, why would you want to do that? And you risk a horrible, bloody, painful death. And then I thought about it. I'm sitting there going, it's no deep, dark secret. Back 10 years ago, 10-year anniversary coming up, I blew my mortal coil, and I was leaving and departing the world. And I remember, the operations and everything that were going on. They were painful.
I should point out to our new listeners that my cohort in crime here, what he's talking about was he had a near-death experience about 10 years ago, Bo, 15 years ago.
It was a death experience. My heart was dead.
Yeah.
But either way, and I still have my heart. I don't have any. It was some amazing doctors that said, well, we got to take a chance. But either way, they had to shove things in my body that should never have been shoved, from an ankle, running a pipe up the leg and up to the chest to try to manipulate the heart and get it going. We don't need to go into all that. But what I'm saying is that initial pain is something that your mind tells you that there's something going on that you need to be aware of. But it is basically controlled by thought, is where I'm going with this. So in a game, you can program people to where the mind is desensitized. So you might go out there and become the perfect killing machine to where you're already programmed to, you're wired to not even think and realize the pain.
It's interesting. There was a show last night I was watching on TV. There's a program called Tracker. And in the episode I watched, they were searching for somebody in a winter mountainous environment, a lot of snow, a lot of cold. And the two young ladies who were lost that they were looking for, one of them was shedding her clothes, her coat and her hat. And the tracker said, well, she is it's hypothermia, and part of the way that hypothermia in some cases manifests itself is you start to feel like you're getting hot. It's your brain. Your brain is reversing the messages. Instead of saying I'm freezing, I'm cold, it becomes confused, and they actually start to feel like it's incredibly warm. Thus, they shed their coat and their hat and stuff. That never occurred to me. Well, that goes to what you were saying. You can reprogram the brain.
Yeah. The case in point, I was talking about, they shoved that rod, this metal rod that went from my ankle all the way up. I was out when they did it, but they shoved this thing all the way up, and it stopped right here at my heart. I couldn't move in that bed. I was in one position, and they were hoping, and they were going, well, we're going to see if our experiment worked, and it did. But I remember the doctor coming in one day, and he goes, okay, we're going to find out today if you live or die, with what we did. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to take this thing out. We'll go as slow as you need. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, oh, this is going to be painful. And I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, on a scale of 1 to 10, you're looking at a 20. I said, okay. So he starts to pull, and he goes, am I doing okay? I mean, we're a couple of seconds into it. And I said, brother, yank it. Just take it. He goes, you serious? I'm going, my mind had already shut it off. And so they did. And I felt not one damn thing of it. Yes, I have full feeling there.
Yeah.
Have full function. But I didn't feel it because the mind had already.
And, the slower they took it out, the more of a chance for your mind to start to think about what it should be doing.
There's a problem here.
Yeah.
So, but that's what I'm saying. With these games, you can program the mind. Ain't nothing to it, brother. I'll shut that little pain sensor off. You go out there and tear them up, and they'll tear you up.
Well, this kid, Thomas Matthew Crooks, 20 years old. I'd love to find out whether he was a gamer. I'd love to find out. And by the way, I'm not criticizing gamers. Most of the young people are able to deal with it and go out and do their work, and life is good. But there are some that can't.
Mm-hmm. My son's a gamer. All my
that kid at Sandy Hook was a gamer.
Yeah. And my girlfriend's son is a gamer. I set him up with, I saw he was playing games on his phone. I'm sitting there going, you know what? I mean, COVID happened and everything. And I said, you know what? Give him something, but keep him, he knows fiction from reality. And that's important. You got to have, but see, so many parents, here's your computer, and they leave them alone. A lot of these games come from China. Yeah. And they know that. And look, they're smart people over there. They're doing everything they can to dismantle and take down America. They want it. They want all of our assets. They want us. I'm just saying.
Ever wonder why they're on games that have a real positive outcome, or maybe promote morality, or they always seem to promote the most vile part of us. How many people can you kill? When you shoot somebody, you feel rewarded when you do it in the most violent way. No, it is. We
it's
live
a
in
thought.
Yeah, I think this has got to be addressed in the long run, and I do think that you're going to find out when Thomas Matthew Crooks was probably a gamer. They've never said it because they haven't told us a darn thing about Thomas Matthew Crooks. Everything that we learn right now about this attempted assassination is hearsay and somebody's guess. We haven't really had the government say, okay, here's all the information we have on Crooks as of right now. They're hiding a lot of stuff from us. I think they're hiding stuff from the president. Mm-hmm. And at some point, and you said, well, how can they do that? Doesn't the president have his own people now running the Secret Service or the FBI? I think that Kash Patel and the new head of the Secret Service, they're stonewalled by the people that you were talking about, the people who it's to their benefit to keep those things a secret. And which also goes to why haven't we heard about the Epstein case yet? We've been told it was going to happen a long time ago. Where the hell is that? But getting back, Bill, to Shapiro, you have to ask yourself, okay, you can see where the left would go after the right, but who's going after Shapiro? Shapiro is a prominent Democrat, but he's also Jewish, and he probably is a front runner in the next presidential election. You know, he has all of the he has looks, and he's more moderate in a lot of his stances, and maybe there's an element that doesn't want him on the playing field.
Or, well, that could be, or it could be that he doesn't know it. This is to get him fired up and make him believe that he's being attacked by the bad guys, the good guys, the guys on the right. And this is all just somebody playing a game there that's pulling the strings. Okay, let's get a kick in the other way and really divide these two sides.
Well, they're doing a darn good job, I'll tell you that much. They are doing just that. Shapiro, I saw his press conference. I'm not going to play it now. It went for like 25 minutes. He was emotional and he was angry. And I sure as heck don't blame him. He had his family in his house.
All right. You're emotional, you're angry, you've been attacked, your family's been attacked. And they come back and say, well, we have reason to believe that, operatives inside Trump's party did this. What would that do to you? You would really get active, get motivated. But that could all be BS.
Well, they showed pictures of the guy. Now they're saying this. This is interesting. I should point this out. They're saying that the mainstream media is holding back showing pictures of this guy Balmer, who they arrested, but they only found one guy in that area with his name, and the image on Facebook, he's holding a gun pointed towards the camera. Now, how many guys do you know? And by the way, he looks like he's more leftist than rightist, if you know what I mean. There's a look about him that you say, well, this isn't right, literally and figuratively. They only found one guy with his name on Facebook in Harrisburg, PA. They believe he was the character, and but the left is hesitant about posting pictures. Now, the left doesn't want. If they can make this story go away, they will do it. Trust me. If they can bury this story by, let's say, tomorrow, today would be better, they will do it because it doesn't benefit them, And there's so much more, Bill, on this story that we haven't. How does a guy, any guy, get over the fence at the governor's mansion in Pennsylvania, bypass security, get into the house, and then take the time to set off the explosives, I guess, in two separate front rooms, and then leave and get away?
Well, is security that bad for the Democrats as well as the Republicans? Or is there some... Well, no, come on.
I know.
Or is there somebody in the inside that has access both ways and reports to a different commander-in-chief? And
you're saying is there a third faction in our government that really tries to run things? And
bingo.
Okay.
And
otherwise known as, dare I say, the deep state?
Right.
Yeah.
So, we've got these parties divided. We've been going after Trump. Well, this guy's a contender, and he might be the guy that runs. I mean, hell, it could be the party themselves to sit there and wake him up and get him motivated so that they do not have a contender for 2028. So
well,
maybe,
think of it. They turned their back on him when he was suggested as being the vice presidential nominee. And by the way, he would have been far superior than Tim Walz. Well, whether you like him or not, whether you're a Democrat or not, he would have added a modicum of stability to a very unstable candidacy from Kamala. You had Kamala and Tim. It was like a road show, a bad road show.
Do you think the Butler assassination attempt helped or hurt Trump in the campaign?
Well, in the long run, because he lived and he was...
it rallied.
Yeah, it rallied a lot of people paid more attention to him, but Bill,
I'm just saying.
I know, but
somebody want to sit there and.
But people. There was no intent, but on his side to have that happen. He lived by the grace of God. Literally, if he had turned his head just a millimeter or two more to his left, the back side of his head would have been blown off.
They missed twice, maybe more than that. But twice that we know of. But maybe somebody is stealing a page from that, going, well, we want to plant this seed. So here's how we're going to do it.
Well,
Steal a page of history.
Well, that's a good point. Could it be that the left did it intentionally to themselves? I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
without saying it, but you just did. So there you go.
Hey, listen, you know what we all have to do? Take a deep breath and sit down and have a cup of coffee. And we can do that a lot of ways. I mean, there's all these different brands out there. But if you want a really cup after cup, quality cup of coffee, you got to try Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. You're saying, well, I'd do it, Jim, but I've been to the store. I haven't seen any Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. You're not going to find it in the store.
Find it there.
Nope, it's not there. Bill, tell them where you'll find it.
Well, you could go to the corner drugstore, go to the corner liquor store. It's
not going to find it, no.
No, but if you go home and turn on your computer, and, well, there's two ways to do it. You can go to itsanotherdday.com, and there on the web page, top left, corner up there at the top, in the menu bar, it says Right Side Shop. You click that, and there it is.
Wow.
And you got all the swag. You got the coffee cups, the Make America Percolate Again coffee. You got Right Side coffee. You got the good stuff. That's where you go. Now, if you don't want to do that, you don't want to be seen going to a conservative talk show site, then you could just go to rightsideshop.com. There you go.
Yeah, if you don't want to be seen coming to our site, like we're special. No, I think he's right, though. We made it so that you can go to two different places and get to the same great coffee, all right? Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. It's a medium blend roast and a medium decaf roast. You'll love it. You got to try it. And we've said it many times before, but if you want to change someone's thinking, if they're somebody who's left-leaning and they're hard to move, they're just immovable, sit them down, tell them to take a deep breath, put a nice cup of Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee in front of them, and give them a couple of minutes to drink that coffee. Before you know it, they'll be more understanding, more on your side. You'll be amazed. It works all the time. Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. And also, we've gone to absolutely no expense, think about that for a second, to bring in some of the greatest musicians in Tijuana. That's right. We have brought Juan Jose and the Border Crossers direct from their latest engagement at the Tijuana jail to sing our jingle. Guys?
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
There it is, our jingle. Only they can do it. I mean, we've had other groups try to do it. It doesn't have the same effect. So anyway, we had other things that are going on in the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement apprehended a Chinese national who was convicted of illegally operating as an agent of communist China within the United States.
A spy.
We had a spy, yeah. On March 24th, ICE's enforcement and removal operations in Newark, New Jersey, arrested 61-year-old Ming Zhang, a Chinese citizen who had been living in Montgomery Township, New Jersey. You never know where a spy is. He could be right next door. You just don't know. So I guess, what will they do to him? Will they arrest him, put him in jail here, or will they send him back to China? What do you think? I guess they'll put him in jail here, right? He's a spy.
Who knows?
Yes.
I mean,
nowadays they'll send him to a district court judge and he'll release him on his own recognizance. He wasn't.
We'll try to get rid of him or lock him up. Judge him. No. He gets too.
He's really a nice man, so we'll release him. Yes,
and give him his computer and all his stuff back too.
Yes, and by the way, who arrested him? People in the Trump administration.
Fire him.
Yes, fire them. Yes, exactly
right.
I see where also Russian missiles. There was a ceremony they called it an Easter celebration in Ukraine, not too far from Kyiv, and apparently Russian missiles hit it, two of them, and caused a lot of injury. I don't know whether they mentioned any deaths, but of course now the Ukrainians are all up in arms. It's a war, folks. It's a war. Dare I say, look at Germany in World War II. There was no city that was a safe zone or behind the lines.
Dare I say there was a ceasefire and the Ukrainians breached it?
Yeah. Isn't
So,
that funny how that worked out?
Yeah, but let's not talk about that. Look, you know what? And there have been numerous deals for peace and everything, and Zelensky every damn time has said, nah, there ain't no stinking deal, you know?
Yeah. Well, over the weekend, Trump said, hey, enough is enough. This has got to end. This war's got to stop. We've got to get serious. But, you know, every time Trump does stuff like this, the anti-Trump media, and that's usually mainstream, will have an interview with Zelensky or something like that. They'll try to make him out to be a patriot and somebody who's almost like they called him the George Washington and the Winston Churchill of Ukraine. I mean, if they could figure out some other past patriots to label him as, they would have. And so they had Zelensky on. I guess it was 60 Minutes. And it's folks, the left is not, these mainstream media outlets are not there to help you, and they're not there to give you the truth. They mask it in this image of professionalism. You'll get the great talkers like Scott Pelley talking about this and that, Leslie Stahl, and you'll say, my God, these people can't lie. They don't know how to lie because they talk so articulately, and they say all the right things, supposedly. Lester Holt on NBC. My God, who has a better voice than Lester Holt? But yet, the stuff that they say isn't truthful. You know, everybody's caught up in the delivery and not the substance of what they say. And 60 Minutes, when I was a younger man, was an incredibly reliable and honest purveyor of truth. They were an outlet that you could, if you wanted to know what was really going on, you had to watch it on 60 Minutes. And if 60 Minutes said it was factual. Well, they've abused that. The current people at 60 Minutes have taken that respectability and wore it like a cloak to hide the lies that they have thrown out at our society. They've thrown this garbage out, and they've pretended that it was something that you should believe. You know, then they've used people like Leslie Stahl and whoever. I mean, all of those cast of characters who host on that program should be ashamed of what they've done. I still can see Leslie Stahl saying to President Trump, Sir, we're 60 Minutes, and we have a responsibility to tell the truth. And it was found that she was lying. Mm-hmm. It was found out later on, without a shadow of a doubt, that she had lied, and she knew it. But they just sell it, you know?
Yeah. How long have they been lying? When did the train get off the track? Where, could you trace it back?
I would go back to the Clinton era.
Yeah. Somewhere along the line, it got off the track, and then they said, it's pretty nice off the track. We can cut our own trail and say what we want to say, and
we had Mike Wallace and all those guys work their tails off to give you the facts and just the facts, and put people
the facts.
Yeah, and so these newcomers come along. I say newcomers in the last 25, 30 years, and they have abused that privilege. But that's the case with all of these different networks. I mean, CNN used to be the place to go when you wanted to find out what was happening in the world. If you heard that there was an attack somewhere, I can remember the first Iranian war. There was no Fox News, right? There was an attack in Iran. It was, 1990 or something like that? In Iraq, rather. And, my God, you had to go and turn your TV on CNN because they were given 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week coverage. Had all these different guys behind the scenes with their cameras You got the story, and you got it honestly. But they've abused it. They've taken it and they've stripped it. For the sake of ideology, they have ruined it. I don't know whether anybody's making any money on CNN stock. I wouldn't want to be an investor in CNN. I don't know how you could sell CNN or MSNBC. You would have to, if you buy MSNBC, it would have to be like a fire sale, get it at a good price, and then you would have to spend the first year or two, every second of promotion would be the new MSNBC under new men. I mean, you would have to do a tailor-made promotion to tell the world that we're not like we used to be, because they have done so much damage to that operation.
Yeah, they have.
Anyway, go ahead, Bill.
No, I was saying it's crazy what they've done.
Yep,
Yeah,
it really is. I mean, we could go on and on, but I just noticed the clock on the wall. It's that time to wrap this thing up, my friend. Is there anything else you want to add before we put a fork in it?
Because anything that I want to talk about now, I can talk about tomorrow morning.
And I think we will. Have a great day, my friend.
Hey, you do the same. Until then, hasta la vista, baby. We're out of here.
This is CRN America.